The New Balance Fresh Foam X More V4 is one hunk of a max cushion shoe, boasting what most would consider a classic mesh upper, traditional lacing system, and a non-gusseted tongue. One might say this shoe is boring. However, that is where traditional goes out the window, because that all sits on top of a fat slab of Fresh Foam X midsole, standing 34 millimeters in the heel and 30 millimeters in the toe, showcasing a 4 millimeter drop. The outsole features strategically placed ground contact foam, some exposed midsole, rear cutout, and a beveled heel that was reportedly designed to aid in shock absorption. This neutral pillow comes in at 11.4 ounces in the US men's size 10.5 and will roll you down the pavement with its heel to toe rocker design. But is it worth it in 2024? Stick around, kids, and find out. What's going on, guys? My name's Kyle. Today we are doing a 200-mile review of the New Balance More V4. I picked these guys up just probably 3-4 months ago. I've done, like I said, 200 miles in them. They come in at a good price. You can get them in a lot of sizes, so I still think it is worthwhile, even though this shoe did come out late 2022. It was very popular. A lot of reviews I did watch really liked them. Hint, so did I. But I thought it was still worthwhile to do a review of these. So we're gonna go over kind of fit and feel, and then we'll move into how they broke down over 200 miles, and then I'll give you some final conclusions. Who is it best for, and what is it best for? So stick around. I hope you get something out of the video. Maybe consider liking and subscribing. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the fit and feel of the More V4. So what did it feel like stepping into the More V4 for the first time? I would say we can do a general fit, and then I'll talk about kind of the materials and how comfortable it was. So slipping into it, I would say an average room / snug heel, but it definitely has enough kind of foam underneath that when you slip into it, you almost immediately want to rock back on it and just test the midsole almost. So that's kind of my first emotions around the heel. I would say comfortable, snug. There's definitely quite a bit of kind of stability around the heel. So it gives a good hug with stability, which I would say is very telling of how the rest of this shoe is gonna feel. Through the mid section around the arch, I will say it does have a little bit of kind of pressure up, I guess like a slightly raised arch. It's certainly nothing that affected me. It didn't give me any blisters or hot spots, but I feel it a bit on the inside and a tiny bit on the outside. So bear in mind, if you're looking at this, it does have a little bit of kind of arch cupping, I guess. It's a tiny bit. It didn't bother me at all. I've run in quite a few shoes. I've run in far more aggressive arched shoes. So something to bear in mind. Moving forward, toe box, I would say is almost like a Pegasus, or at least like the 38 Pegasus. There's moderate room in the toe box, but certainly not a lot of splay room. I would say overall mildly narrow shoe. And then overall length, I would say is a tiny bit short of true to size, but I would definitely still order these true to size if you are considering them. I got them in a 10.5, which is what I get. That's like my standard. And they fit really great. Got a little bit of room in the end, but not too much. Overall fit, I would say that covers kind of that heel to toe. The upper is a very classic mesh upper. It doesn't do a whole lot that you wouldn't expect it to. It hugs down, it is not a gusseted tongue, which, you know, sometimes you don't really get the sock-like fit, but you also, I feel like, can really kind of lace things down without getting as many folds or something in the tongue that you would in a fully gusseted shoe. So pros and cons, I guess, there. Classic lacing system. Mesh is mildly breathable. It's been pretty cold since I've been running in it, so it never really was an issue in terms of heat, but I would say if you're in hotter temps, it probably would stack up well in terms of breathability against other daily trainers, like max cushion daily trainers, because none of them are too lightweight. Maybe something like the Super Blast from Asics has a little bit of a lighter upper with a super duper midsole, but that shoe's way more expensive. We gotta talk about the first feel of the midsole. This Fresh Foam X midsole it stacks up, pun intended. It's super soft, it really is. but in a weird way, not super soft like the Invincible at Nike. I felt slightly unstable in the Nike Invincible, where in this, I still feel a lot of stability. Maybe it's because there's a huge kind of surface area on the outside, but I never really got the like wobbles, I guess. I don't know. Some shoes I've gotten a little bit of a wobble in. I feel like the first Endorphin Speed had a little bit of a wobble to it because it was such a nice midsole, but pretty narrow shoe. This one has a lot more surface area. And maybe it's honestly how they just broke down the midsole as it transitions to the outsole, because as you ride, honestly, it could also be kind of that full length rocker design. It really wants you. So it depends on whatever kind of a strike you got. You're gonna have a pretty good time in this, whether your heel all the way up to mid and forefoot striking, like it kind of allows you. So maybe there's a certain guiding element to this midsole and the overall shoe design that gives you super cushion in the midsole, but a bit of a guided, stable ride. That's the best I can describe it. I feel like this is a very like almost, you have to interpret my 200-mile review here. And then, you can't really say too much about the ride of the outsole other than I feel like it did really well and I've not felt unstable. I've run in kind of sprinkling rain, a little bit of snow, nothing like big, icy snow stuff, but I would say it's done really well in a handful of different weather environments, climates. Humidity, lack of humidity, the slipping has not been an issue. And I think it would definitely be fine on like gravel and stuff like that. This may be a good point to say, like, it's definitely can be punctured, or like the midsole has taken certain damage for sure. I will focus more on that in the 200-mile, in the breakdown part. But overall, I have to say, and I feel like I've narrowed down just while thinking about this and talking about it, I think this is an amazing kind of max cushion feel when you get into it. But it does a good job of kind of hugging the foot with like that arch, heel, and kind of a narrow design in terms of space in there. I think that works really well with the max cushion, super soft midsole element. So you kind of have a little bit of stability and a little bit of a guide with that full length rocker. So ultimately it seems like a really well designed max cushion shoe that isn't gonna send you off to sprain your ankle, but it's also not gonna promise this really soft ride and then, be underwhelming when you put it on. It definitely still has the stability and that kind of, whoa, this is a max cushion shoe feel that really makes the ride pretty sweet. So transitioning to the breakdown of this shoe, I honestly can say this is the first shoe I've taken, except for the Endorphin Speed 1. This is the first shoe I've hit 200, and I'm definitely 100% at least doing 250 plus in these. The breakdown has been aesthetically a little bit higher than I think it is with the actual, midsole and materials. I think these are still, maybe halfway through their life. Very, very minimal upper damage. Like you'd imagine with a thicker kind of mesh, it kind of gets certain areas, like as soon as you run through a kind of dusty or slightly muddy area, it's gonna kind of muck up the edges. I always get some stuff, kind of like some damage around the collar. I'm guessing that's just from materials on the road / maybe my sock rubbing against it. But upper's totally fine. Like, it's one of those things where if you're running through like brush and stuff, you could damage an upper like this, but I really don't think you're gonna have too much damage. If you're a regular road runner, like I am most of the time. Yeah, heel is still super stable. I mean, the main thing is the midsole, right? How does that break down? And like I said, kind of introducing this portion is, it's taken a lot of damage. Like you scuff something and you're gonna take a chunk out of your midsole. But overall, like it still feels like a relatively fresh shoe, and certainly a relatively fresh midsole. Not much has broken down. If anything, it honestly took me more like 50 miles to kind of really break in the shoe a little bit. I remember at first being a little skeptical for the first couple of runs. I remember I probably named a bunch of Strava workouts like, interesting, things like that. But yeah, fresh foam, creases for sure. You can see it has kind of this design where each little element, it has like I guess like a foam, like a sea foam almost design, with kind of some perforations closer to the heel of the midsole. But yeah, it physically looks like it's taken damage, and it definitely has over 200 miles, but have to say, midsole is good for another like 200, and I'm really, really happy about that. Again, for the price, which I will say at the end, or you can just look it up right now if you want. Obviously, breakdown you gotta talk about the outsole. I have certainly done a bit of fair damage. I'm getting more used to seeing where I do damage to shoes. It's certainly more up in the forefoot on the inside / middle, and then towards the outside of my feet. That's either where I'm scuffing or where I'm dragging. Not really sure. I should probably do a video separate on that. Yeah, so taking a closer look at it, I do really think that the placement and the overall design of the bottom of the midsole and the outsole, the ground contact foam, although it feels definitely like a very hardened foam, it does a really good job, I think, of like spreading the pressure of each step, which I think, again, it kind of adds to that stability factor of the shoe, but not a ton of damage. Like I said, certain spots. I'm guessing the cutout here was mainly a weight type thing. So, I guess that's kind of just aesthetic and performance. In general, no real complaints from top to bottom. A very interesting shoe and a great introduction to New Balance. All right, my friends, so final conclusions on the More V4 from New Balance. If they aren't obvious at this point, maybe you skip to the end just to get the conclusions. That's fair too. My conclusions, this shoe is for someone who is at least a moderately experienced to experienced runner who's doing a bunch of miles and really wants one shoe to do a bunch of slow miles in so that their faster, lighter shoes can feel fresher for those faster tempo, maybe high effort, long run days. And then you've got this bad boy for those other slow recovery days. So I think there's a room for this in someone's rotation who's maybe a more advanced runner, but I also definitely feel like this is an amazing kind of first shoe if you're kind of transitioning from, maybe you're someone who did their first 5K and now you're looking to do a 10K or a half marathon, and you want kind of a shoe that is going to be easy on the body. You're not too worried about time and speed. You're more about getting the distance and the miles in. I think this is an awesome shoe for you. Obviously, all of that bearing in mind that you either try it on someplace or you order it without being married to the idea of keeping it yet. Something I always say is like, this shoe fit me really well. I have a very narrow foot from heel to toe. So it's not gonna be the same for everyone. You might try this on and think, oh God, it's so tight. With that little bit of pressure in the arch, or maybe the heel rubs a certain way because of how tight it is in the arch with a little bit of room in the heel, or maybe the toe box just isn't enough room for you, or maybe it's really cold and you tend to wear thicker socks. There's a lot of things to consider. So please consider how you run and what you really need. But I do think that this would work for, like I said, the moderate experienced runner who needs a max cushion shoe in their rotation, or kind of that new-ish runner who's looking for that shoe that can take them a little bit further. And this shoe retailed and still retails at $150, but you can certainly find, I literally just found a pair of 10.5s in a different colorway for $119 straight from New Balance. So you can find deals. You can find deals in a lot of sizes. So I like how accessible this shoe is. And also that kind of leads to the final point of comparing this to a Nike Invincible that retails at $180, or maybe you're looking at, for me, let's see, a Nova Blast would be a good kind of replacement shoe that retails at $140. But that being said, I know ASICS also just came out with the Nimbus 26. I ran, 200 miles in the Nimbus 25. And while I felt that was a really, really great shoe, it cost more than this one. So, if someone is trying to be a little bit more conservative, I bet you can find this for $120 right now with 10 minutes of looking. So yeah, and good luck with the colorways. This one's okay. It was good for winter, I suppose, because I had a lot of kind of yellow and neon stuff on it. But yeah, for the price, the look, the overall functionality of this, it does a really, really, really good job. And with that, my friends, that is the conclusion of my 200-mile review of the More V4 from New Balance. Kind of an oldie, but I would definitely say is still a goodie. So if you did get anything on this video, please consider liking, commenting, or subscribing. I try to keep, a good mix of training videos with shoe reviews, and I might be doing some tights reviews soon because I got a new pair of tights that were kind of cheap, but they work pretty well. I went for one run in them this morning. It's about 25 degrees out, and they held up fine for being cheaper. So maybe we'll do a review on them. But that is enough. That is enough from me. Stay safe out there. Let me know if you have any questions. You can throw anything down in the comments. Happy to try to help. I am by no means a master or expert of these things, but I'm learning every day. So that's all I got for you. See you in the next video. Peace. Don't know where I got the peace thing from. Just kind of started doing that. I now have 24 minutes of me rambling, jambling, bestambling, put together a video. We'll shoot B-roll after dinner. It'll be great.